investment we invested in 2008. We've exited this investment, but it's a large, diversified infrastructure services group focusing on marine repair, power station maintenance, and food equipment. If you go back to 2008, the economic times were very uncertain. The GDP growth was, falling. But what we found as an investment hypothesis of this business was the macro trends were saying something else, while the micro trends were suggesting something else, because the customers they were servicing, they could defer their capex, but they couldn't defer their maintenance. So we definitely liked that aspect of the business. The market, they were in a number one, number two market leader in most of the sectors, and majority of their revenues, close to 95%, were derived out of South Africa. What we liked about that was our footprint. We were in Africa, we have worked across North, East, West, and Southern, and we saw that there's an opportunity to actually take this business to other markets. And obviously the management, despite the hype of what's a good value and what's the right value, they were willing to increase the stake to come in along with the valuation we were going into the business and take out the family interest, who had a divergent interest of what should be good for the business as opposed to what they wanted to do as per the family aspirations. What this led to over the 4 or 5 years we were invested into the business was that this business did become an African regional champion. We went into 10 African countries. Its revenue increased from where it was 95% of its revenue, 40% of its profits came from rest of Africa. So it was a success story from being able to move us at the north of Limpopo and establish those businesses in those different markets. What that led to, and that was an initiative which led by us as Abraaj, was to restructure that balance sheet because of the exchange control regulations, the tax issues. There are different working capital constraints and legislation issues and local content. You had to actually deal with the markets you were entering into. And surprisingly, and also good enough, all partners, including the local content PE partners, came along with us in that journey of the African expansion. When you say ESG, whether ESG pays or not, I think ESG was one of the most defining moments in the history of this business. They were mostly ship repair and maintenance. They wanted to get into oil rigs, which were from the North Coast and West Coast, which were actually going to Rotterdam and Singapore and Brazil to some extent. And obviously it's a globally competitive market, so you have to compete on cost and time, because every day a rig is out, you lose $2 to $3 million of revenue. So they actually managed to get that, but the key issue was that the ESG, there has to be like 0.1 lost time injury points. And they delivered that in 12 weeks with a 0 incidents. And that opened up the entire business aspects for Southey, and it quadrupled its revenue for that division. And obviously transformation, when we went in, it was 15%. I think in those days we were probably one of the first few who went for a long, innovative, broad-based BE, where we left the company at the time of exit to 31%.